Why couldn't future Trunks become a Super Saiyan 2 before present timeline Gohan in Dragon Ball Z? What was the problem future Trunks faced despite being introduced stronger than Gohan when future Trunks killed Frieza, despite being stronger than Gohan when both entered the time chamber for the first time, despite being older? What in-story reason prevented one Saiyan hybrid becoming as strong as the other? The first son of Goku versus the first son of Vegeta. You would think Trunks would have at least similar potential in Dragon Ball Z compared to Gohan, considering later down the line in the anime version of Dragon Ball Super, Trunks obtained a level of power through his own raw potential that could take on the likes of Goku Black, powers far beyond the godly powers introduced at the start of Dragon Ball Super, such as Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue. Of course, Gohan's power was stated to rival Super Saiyan Blue later on, close to the Tournament of Power, or at the very least, face levels of power beyond Battle of Gods. And even in the manga, fight in a fusion, where Super Saiyan Blue Goku was starting to find Kale, one fusion part, a handful. And this was just from him regaining his fighting instincts over the weekend. I'm not trying to make sense of it, I'm just stating what I saw. My point being that in Dragon Ball Super, the hybrid potential wasn't held down. They could become stronger in a heartbeat, but of course, we know most power creeps are down to plot and marketing. But the story still stands. Trunks and Gohan were incredibly strong in Dragon Ball Super. Even if you wish to use the manga only, Trunks' Super Saiyan 2 power was able to rival a post-Battle of Gods Super Saiyan 3 Goku, which is an incredible power-up in its own right, but it's still nothing to what we have now with Gohan, who has become Beast Gohan, and is still younger than what Trunks was in the Goku Black arc. Either there's favoritism in the writing, or Trunks has a huge problem. But let's go back to Dragon Ball Z. Trunks grew up in a world filled with suffering, so there's no doubt he has a lot of emotion built up inside. Of course, this is down to the writing allowing it, where Gohan was written to be a monster as a Super Saiyan 2 and Trunks was written to be the one that changed the future, but not to be the strongest. It's a great story, but it still makes you wonder an inverse reason. If the trigger was right, could Trunks have gone Super Saiyan 2 before Gohan? And more importantly, why wasn't Trunks as strong as Gohan in general back then? Gohan had a lot of hidden potential back then in Dragon Ball Z. In fact, that was the entire foundation of his arc through Z. It all surfaced in the Cell games that ultimately completed his arc. When we watch the Cell games, the simplest answer is that Trunks just wasn't strong enough to wield Super Saiyan 2, or didn't have the hidden potential that Gohan had during that time, where even if Trunks obtained Super Saiyan 2 in the Cell games, he potentially still wouldn't be as strong as Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 level just through raw power alone. Close, but not quite. Also, being the son of Vegeta, where Vegeta has shown higher natural potential than Goku throughout Dragon Ball Z and Super, but it raises even more questions about Trunks' natural potential. So let's look at Gohan's fighting experience compared to Trunks to see if that would be a reason why Trunks' potential didn't shine like Gohan's in Z. Gohan had experience preparing for the Saiyans, then his journey to Namek and what transpired on that planet. You can count the Garlic Jr. arc if you're looking at anime exclusive stories. This is followed by 3 years preparing for the androids, then nearly a year in the time chamber, as well as the fight with Cell, all of which adds up to approximately 5 to 6 years worth of intense times for Gohan. With future Trunks, he's roughly 17 years old when he defeats Frieza. Then he comes back 3 years later and follows up with 2 years in the time chamber, putting him around 22 years old. And yes, the 3 years did pass for Trunks because his time machine is linked to the present timeline through the time machine. That's the rule of time travel the moment they are linked. 1 minute passes in the present is 1 minute in the linked future timeline. But either way, after the second round in the time chamber, where Trunks fought in the Cell games, as well as destroying the androids in his future, that was the highest potential of future Trunks in Dragon Ball Z. Apart from the brief training with future Gohan, Trunks was basically surviving, not so much fighting and growing. If I had to guess, future Trunks did his own personal training after future Gohan died, but how effective was it? Well, future Gohan said that it wouldn't take long for Trunks to surpass him, a few months actually. But by the time Trunks killed Frieza, he wasn't leagues above future Gohan's potential, but somewhere in the same ballpark after 3 years past his death. So not that effective in terms of his own personal training after Gohan died, but for the present timeline Gohan, he always had a mentor, whether it be Piccolo, Goku, or both at the same time. It was efficient training and he was fine-tuned by the time of the Cell games. Consistency is important when training, where Trunks was on and off with his battles, and even if Trunks gained plenty of Zenkais from surviving the androids, so did present Gohan during his arc in Dragon Ball Z, before the android saga. Trunks really couldn't make the best of it because Zenkai boosts by the time of the Android Saga weren't as impactful compared to on Namek, because everyone back then weren't as strong. However, when Future Trunks does return to the future to kill the androids, he was far above Future Gohan by that point and was much younger. Future Gohan fought his whole life and was nothing compared to an 11-year-old in the Cell games. So what went wrong with Future Gohan? That's a story for another day, or we're going to be here a long time. But when it relates to present timeline Gohan, Future Trunks at his best in Z was not even half the power of someone half his age, despite both being hybrids. It wouldn't be until years later fighting Dabura where Trunks would actually achieve Super Saiyan 2, finally, but by that point he had received training using the Z Sword. Cool, he got there, but Gohan did it much younger. So perhaps there was an element of Gohan having the advantage in terms of consistent, efficient training in a shorter window compared to Trunks that never really had a mentor after the brief Future Gohan training. Plus his 2 times training in the time chamber was basically alone. Vegeta didn't train him like Goku trained with Gohan, and that would indeed affect the results of drawing out the potential of Trunks. He wasn't even that experienced in becoming a great all-round warrior, and this was proven with his mistakes against Cell. His mind was lacking, and this in turn stunted his physical growth. He focused on pumping up his little muscles for power purposes rather than focus on conditioning his body and his Super Saiyan power for fighting purposes. Gohan's training had underlying messages, that it wasn't all about the gritty and bloody training routines. Recovery is important. It was conditioning him to bring out the best in him as a fighter, and he combined that with all of his years of battle experience to become a Super Saiyan 2 monster. Mind, body, and spirit all came together for him. That training plan gave Gohan a massive lead on Trunks. And we have to remember, Gohan started training at a much younger age than Trunks. If Future Gohan survived and kept training Trunks, he would have definitely had a better foundation of training knowledge to unlock his potential much sooner, rather than get the crap beat out of him all the time by the androids. That's not training, that's not conditioning. He may get a cheeky little Zenkai here and there, but it would never be enough. Saiyan battle prowess, fighting, is the key for the body, along with mindset, which Future Trunks had a disadvantage with, because getting beat up all the time, losing everyone you love, being tortured, that would be traumatizing. In conclusion, we know it was the right decision to push Gohan as the Cell Saga hero and the superhero, but going with an inverse reason, we can say Trunks' potential was definitely as high as Gohan, as proven in Dragon Ball Super, but the reason why Gohan's potential was drawn out faster than Trunks could have been down to lifestyle, training efficiency, and of course, the final trigger for Super Saiyan 2. Trunks had that against Dabura, but I do believe it should have happened much sooner for someone who experienced what Trunks did. Imagine Trunks had the same rage trigger against Zamasu back in the Cell games. Imagine how strong he would have got then. Sometimes it's about finding the right key to the door. If we go by the manga version of events, there's some little details that I want to share with you right now. Trunks was already a Super Saiyan when he was training with Future Gohan, which changes the whole game when Future Gohan dies. Why couldn't Trunks become a Super Saiyan 2 upon Gohan's death? Surely that would have been the trigger needed for the next level. If he was already a Super Saiyan, what can be more hurtful to Trunks, other than seeing Future Bulma die in Super? Again, the writing. But when you compare this to Gohan, when he unlocked Super Saiyan 1, he wasn't far off Super Saiyan 2 because Goku already saw that power for a brief second. So the gap Gohan closed in a short time thanks to the plot is insane. Future Trunks in the manga version was already a Super Saiyan for some time, and I strongly believe, in verse, he should have had the potential for Super Saiyan 2 with all that rage seeing Future Gohan die, being a hybrid and all. But you guys let me know what you think about that. I think the future timeline is just cursed for unlocking potential. So we just go around in circles where it all boils down to Gohan unlocked more potential than Trunks at his age. I don't want to say Gohan's got infinitely more potential than Trunks despite both being hybrids, although it does seem that way right now with Beast Gohan, but we haven't had much of Future Trunks lately, at least not in the main continuity. But we just don't know how far Trunks can go either, and if his Super Saiyan Rage out of nowhere is anything to go by against Goku Black, then I'm not counting him out just yet in terms of his potential. And that's it. Being a hybrid was the key to more potential in Dragon Ball Z, but they would still need the proper fighting and training experience to bring out the potential faster, as well as a suitable trigger for more rage. And as proven with Gohan, it was done at half the age of Future Trunks. But the biggest problem with Future Trunks and what he had to face was not himself, but the writing.